It is the year 1348, and tonight, the streets are empty. Not because of curfew, not because of war, but because of something nobody has a name for yet. Something that moves like wind, unseen, unstoppable. In the great cities of Europe, markets that once thundered with 1,000 voices are silent. Cathedral bells that once rang for weddings and festivals now ring only at dusk. Once, twice, 3 times, and then silence again. But in that silence, something unexpected. Fires still burning in cottage windows, candles still flickering in monastery halls, soup still simmering over hearths, children still being tucked into beds of straw, hands still being held, prayers still being whispered into the dark, life still insisting on itself. My name is Brother Edmund. I am a physician, and tonight I walk the roads between villages, as I have walked them for 3 years. My bag heavy with dried herbs, lavender, rosemary, thyme. My lantern throwing a small circle of warm light onto the ancient mud road ahead. The night is cold, but I have walked colder nights. The road is long, but I have walked longer roads. And somewhere ahead, a fire is burning. I can see its glow above the tree line, faint, amber, like a single ember refusing to go out. I walk toward it, as I always do, toward delight, toward the warmth, toward the people who need me. And tonight, I want you to walk with me. The road beneath my feet is familiar. I have walked it so many times that my boots know every stone, every dip, every place where the mud runs deep after rain, every route that crosses the path just where the moonlight does not reach. Tonight, the rain has stopped, but the earth still smells of it, that deep, cold smell of wet soil and fallen leaves. Ancient, honest, the kind of smell that reminds you the earth was here long before us and will be here long after. I pull my cloak tighter, not from fear, simply from the cold. There is a difference. I learned that difference 3 years ago when I first began this walk. Back then, my hands trembled when I knocked on doors. My breath came short in the dark. My mind filled with things I could not name. My voice uncertain when I called out my name into the silence. Now my hands are steady. My breath is slow. My voice is calm. Because I have learned something that no book ever taught me. What the sick need most is not always the herbs in my bag. It is not always the poultices. It is not always the tinctures or the careful measurements. It is this: a steady voice, a calm presence, the sight of someone who has walked through the dark and is not afraid of it. I pass a stone wall on my left, old, covered in dark green moss. I have touched this wall so many times, I know its texture without looking. Cold, rough, solid. Some things remain, even now, especially now. The lantern in my hand throws a small circle of amber light onto the road ahead, just enough to see the next few steps. That is all anyone ever needs. The next few steps. Not the whole road, just what is immediately ahead. I have thought about this many times on these long night walks, how we exhaust ourselves trying to see the whole road at once, when all we ever actually walk is one step. Then the next. Then the next. One step at a time. One night at a time. One village at a time. The trees begin to thin on my right. I can see more sky now, the stars sharp and close. the way they only get when the air is completely still. No wind, no clouds, just the cold, clear dark and 1,000 points of light. I stop for a moment, simply to look. I do this every night. No matter how tired I am, no matter how heavy the bag on my shoulder, I stop and look up. Because it is easy in this work to look only at the ground, at the mud, at the next step, at the door you must knock on, at the face that will open it. It is easy to forget that above all of it, this exists, unchanged, unchangeable. The same stars that burned above Rome, above Egypt, above the first men who ever walked a road at night, burning still. I exhale slowly and walk on. The village appears gradually, the way villages always do at night. First a rooftop against the dark sky, then a chimney with a thin thread of smoke rising, then another, and another, until the whole small village takes shape in the darkness. 12 cottages, stone walls, thatched roofs dark with old rain, a small stone church at the far end, its single bell tower rising against the stars. A well in the center of the village lane, rope coiled over the wooden arm, a bucket resting on the stones, and one large oak tree, ancient, its bare branches reaching up into the night sky like enormous dark fingers, feeling for something only they can sense. I stop at the edge of the village and listen. This is always the first thing I do, before I knock on any door, before I call out any name. I listen. A village that is well, you can hear it even in the dead of night. A dog barking somewhere near the eastern cottages, stopping, then barking once more. A baby crying briefly from behind a shuttered window. 2 short cries, then silence. Then a low, murmuring voice. A mother's voice, settling the child back into sleep. The creak of a wooden shutter somewhere, pushed by a breath of wind. Small sounds, living sounds. The sounds of a village that is still here, still breathing, still itself. This village has all of them. I exhale, a long, slow breath, and walk in. The first cottage on the left belongs to the miller, old Thomas. I have visited him and his wife Agnes 4 times this year. Thomas is a large, quiet man who says little and notices everything. Agnes is small and quick and says everything she thinks the moment she thinks it. They have been married for 46 years. I know this because Agnes told me on my first visit, and on my second, and on my third. I tap on the door gently. 3 taps, my signal. The same 3 taps on every door in every village. So they know before they open it that it is me. A moment of silence. Then the familiar shuffle of feet on a stone floor. Unhurried, steady. The door opens. Agnes. Her face warm and lined in the candlelight. White hair loose around her shoulders. A heavy wool shawl pulled tight. Her eyes as bright as ever. Sharp. Alive. She looks at me for a moment, then steps aside without a word. I walk in. The cottage is 1 room. Low ceiling, dark beams above. From every beam hang bundles of dried herbs. Lavender, rosemary, sage. The whole room smells of them. Sweet and sharp and clean. Like something between a garden and a prayer. A fire burns steady in the stone hearth. Well built. Solid oak logs, the kind that do not rush, the kind that do not flare and exhaust themselves quickly. They burn slowly, patiently, giving warmth for hours. Against the far wall, 2 straw beds pushed close together. Old Thomas asleep in one, his breathing slow, even, deep. Good. A crucifix on the stone wall above the beds. Simple, dark wood. A small tallow candle burning on the windowsill, its flame barely moving. Straight up, patient. Agnes has already set a clay cup on the small wooden table, steam rising from it. I sit, pull off my hat, set it on the table beside the cup. Wrap both hands around the warmth of the clay. It travels up through my palms, through my wrists, through my forearms, through my whole tired body. Like something loosening, like something letting go. Agnes sits across from me, her hands folded in her lap, looking at the fire. I look at the fire too. We do not speak. We never need to right away. There is an understanding between people who have sat together in difficult times. Words are not always necessary. Sometimes presence is the whole of it. Sometimes sitting across from another human being, in a warm room, with a fire between you, is enough, is more than enough, is everything. The fire breathes, orange, then gold, then settling to a steady amber. I drink slowly, something warm and herbed. I do not ask what. I never ask. Whatever Agnes makes is always right. After a while, she speaks, quietly, carefully, so as not to wake Thomas. She tells me the family at the last cottage lost their youngest boy last week, 7 years old. I close my eyes for a moment, then open them. I already knew, but hearing it from Agnes makes it real again in a different way. She tells me the priest has been praying in the church every night since, candles burning until dawn. She tells me she has been leaving bread on their doorstep each morning, a full loaf, every morning, without fail. I look at her, this woman, 70 years on this earth, living through the darkest season her world has ever known. And every morning, before the village is awake, she walks to that doorstep and leaves bread. I have thought many times about what saves people, not just bodies, but people. What keeps the human thing alive inside us when everything is trying to extinguish it? I do not think it is the physicians. I do not think it is the kings, or the armies, or the grand gestures. I think it is this, the Agneses, the ones who leave bread, who hang lavender from every beam, who keep a fire burning, even when they are the only ones awake, who open a door at night without hesitation, who sit quietly across from a tired stranger and give him something warm to hold, without asking for anything in return. I finish the cup, set it down gently on the table. Agnes is already on her feet, moving to the hearth. She lifts one more log from the pile, places it carefully onto the fire. The fire breathes it in slowly. Orange first, then gold, then settling to steady amber again. I stand, pull my cloak around my shoulders, check my bag. Agnes presses a small bundle into my hand. Dried rosemary, tied with rough string. She does this every single time. I take it, every single time. I thank her, She waves her hand, like it is nothing. It is everything. At the door, I stop. Look back once. The fire. Agnes settling back into her chair. Thomas breathing slowly. The crucifix. The lavender. The single candle on the sill. A whole life in one small room. Warm. Intact. Holding. I step out, pull the door closed softly behind me. The cold air on my face, the stars above, the rosemary in my hand, its smell rising sharp and clean into the night. I stand still for one moment, just breathing. Then I walk on, to the next cottage, to the next fire, to whoever needs me next. The second cottage belongs to a young couple. I do not know them well. They arrived in this village only last spring, from the south, from one of the cities. I do not ask which one. People who leave cities these days do not always want to say which city they left, or why. Their name is Aldrich, the husband. He opened the door before I even knocked, as if he had been listening for footsteps on the lane. He is tall, young, dark circles beneath his eyes, the kind that come not from one bad night, but from many, from weeks of sleeping lightly, from weeks of waking at every sound. I have seen those eyes on 100 faces this year. I know what they mean. He steps back, and I walk in. His wife is sitting by the fire, young, perhaps 20 years old, her hands busy with a piece of cloth she is mending. She looks up when I enter, and something in her face relaxes, just slightly, the way a clenched fist slowly opens. I have seen that too, many times. The way people look when someone they were hoping for finally arrives. I check them both, hands, neck, temperature, breathing. Both well, both strong. I tell them this, quietly, clearly. The way you tell someone something true, without decoration, without false comfort. Just the plain, honest fact of it. You are well. Tonight, you are well. The young wife exhales, a long breath, like she had been holding it for days. Perhaps she had. I leave them dried lavender and instructions to keep the windows shut at night, to burn the herbs on the fire each evening, to eat, even when they do not feel like eating, especially then. Aldrich walks me to the door. At the threshold, he pauses. He wants to say something. I can see it in his face. Something he has been carrying, something heavy. I wait. He says, "Do you think it will end?" I look at him, this young man, standing in the doorway of a small cottage in a small village, asking the question every person in Europe is asking, every single night. Do you think it will end? I tell him, everything ends. The hard winters, the long droughts, the years when nothing grows. Everything ends. And then something begins. He nods, slowly, like he is placing those words somewhere safe inside himself, somewhere he can find them again, later, when the night is long. I step out and walk on. At the center of the village, the stone well stands silent, the rope hanging still, the bucket resting on the stones. I have drawn water from this well many times. Tonight I stop beside it, set my lantern on the stones, and sit. Just for a moment. Just a moment of stillness, the cold stone beneath me. The village, quiet on all sides. Above the well, the oak tree rises, enormous, patient. its bare branches spread wide against the stars. I have thought about this tree many times, how long it has stood here, long before this village existed, long before the first stone of the first cottage was laid. It stood here when this was just a clearing in a forest. It will stand long after every cottage has crumbled, long after every name carved into these stones is forgotten. There is something in that thought that I find deeply restful, not frightening, restful. The world is old, far older than our fear, far older than our grief, and it continues, quietly, steadily, the way this tree continues, without rushing, without needing to be reassured, just growing, just standing, just here. I pick up my lantern and walk to the church. The door is unlocked. It is always unlocked. Father Anselm keeps it open every night. He told me once that a church with a locked door is just a building. I push it open. The hinges make their familiar sound, low, slow, like a note held too long. Inside, candles, dozens of them, lining both sides of the nave, their flames all burning straight, completely still, as if the air inside the church has not moved in centuries. The smell of beeswax and incense, old stone, cold, ancient, a smell that reaches back through time, through all the hands that lit all the candles, through all the mouths that said all the prayers, through all the people who walked through that door, carrying what they could not carry alone. Father Anselm is at the altar, kneeling, his back to me. He does not turn, but he knows I am here. He always knows. I sit in the last pew, the wood worn smooth by 1,000 Sundays. I set my bag on the floor, set my hat beside it, and just sit, breathing. The candles, the incense, the silence. The silence here is different from the silence outside. The silence outside is the silence of absence, empty streets, empty markets, the silence of things missing. The silence in here is the silence of fullness, of something so complete it has no need of sound. I close my eyes for just a moment, just a moment. Father Anselm begins to speak, quietly, not to me. I am simply here, allowed to listen. His voice is low, unhurried, the Latin words moving through the candlelit air, like smoke, like water. I do not follow every word. I do not need to. The voice itself is enough. The steadiness of it, the certainty. Not certainty that everything will be well, but certainty that whatever comes is not the end of everything. I sit in that certainty for a long time, long enough for my shoulders to drop, long enough for the tightness behind my eyes to ease, long enough for the weight I carry to sit on the floor beside my bag, just for a while. When I finally stand, Father Anselm is still at the altar, still kneeling. I pick up my bag, my hat, and walk quietly back to the door. At the door, I pause, turn back once. The rows of candles, all those flames, all burning, all still, all insisting. I step out. The cold air again. The stars again. The road again. But something is different now. Something is lighter. I have felt this before, after sitting in that church, after sitting in that silence. Something that was drawn tight is loose again. Something that was loud inside me is quiet. I walk to the edge of the village, where the lane becomes road again, where the cobblestones end and the mud begins. I stop, look back at the village, the 12 cottages, a few windows still glowing, the church, the oak tree standing over all of it, arms wide, patient, still. I think of Agnes, her bread on a doorstep, her rosemary in my hand. I think of Aldrich, his question in the dark. Everything ends, and then something begins. I think of Father Anselm, still kneeling, still speaking, into the candlelit silence. I think of the family in the last cottage, their empty chair, their grief, and the bread on their doorstep every morning, left by an old woman who could not fix anything, but could leave bread. This is what I carry with me. Not just the herbs, not just the medicines. This. The bread, the fire, the 3 knocks, the cup of something warm, the old man sleeping, the young wife exhaling, the priest still praying, the tree still standing. All of it. I carry all of it, down the dark road, toward the next village, my lantern swinging, my boots on the mud, the rosemary still in my hand, its smell rising sharp and clean into the cold, dark air, the stars above, the road ahead, one step, then the next, then the next. The road between villages is longer at night, not in distance, in feeling. Every sound carries further. Every shadow stretches longer. Every step seems to take you deeper into something ancient. Something that was here before the villages, before the roads, before any of us thought to name this land. I have walked this stretch hundreds of times, and every time it asks something of me. Not effort, not courage, just attention. Just the willingness to be completely here, in this darkness, on this road, under these stars, without wishing it were different, without wishing it were over. Just here. The lantern throws its small circle of light, and I walk inside it. Everything outside the circle is shadow, but the shadow does not feel dangerous tonight. It feels like rest, like the darkness is simply the world setting down its noise, pulling a heavy cloak around its shoulders, and breathing slowly, the way I am breathing now. Slowly. One breath, then the next. The rosemary is still in my hand. I had forgotten I was holding it. I bring it close, breathe it in. Sharp, clean, alive. Something in that smell. Something that cuts through everything. Through the cold, through the exhaustion, through all the faces and all the doors and all the questions. and leaves just this. Just the smell. Just the night. Just the road. Just me. Walking. I pass a place where the road dips low, between two dark fields. The grass on both sides silver with frost, each blade standing perfectly still. The frost so fine, it looks like something has breathed on every blade and left the memory of that breath behind. I stop, kneel, touch the frosted grass with one finger. Cold, impossibly fine, like touching something that should not exist, like touching a thought. I stand again and walk on, smiling, at nothing, at everything. The second village is smaller than the first. 8 cottages, no church, just a small stone shrine at the crossroads, a carved figure inside, a candle burning. Someone has been here recently. The wax still warm, the flame still fresh. I pause at the shrine, look at the small flame. This small act of faith. Someone walked out here tonight, in the cold, in the dark, and lit this candle. Not because anyone asked them to, not because anyone would know, but because it felt right. Because in the face of everything, the answer was still, light something, keep something burning. I stand there for a long moment, the candle flame reflected in my eyes. Then I walk into the village. This village is quieter than the first, all windows dark, all fires banked low for the night. I make my checks quickly, quietly. 3 knocks. Listen. Enter. Check. Leave herbs. Move on. In the 4th cottage, a child is awake, perhaps 4 years old, sitting up in her straw bed, eyes wide in the dark, her mother asleep beside her, exhausted. The child looks at me. I look at her. I set my lantern on the floor, sit on the edge of the bed, and in a voice barely above a whisper, I tell her a story. I do not plan which story. The words simply come. About a girl who lived in a forest, who had a lantern that never went out. No matter how dark the night, no matter how deep the forest, the lantern always burned, because the girl carried it carefully and believed in its light. The child's eyes slowly, slowly close. I sit for a moment longer, listening to her breathe. Then I pick up my lantern and go, outside again. The cold air, the stars, the road. But something has shifted, something in me, something settled deeper, further down, below the tiredness, below the cold, below all of it. Something that was always there, but that I forget sometimes, in the long, dark stretches, in the weeks when the doors open onto grief instead of relief, in the mornings when the rosemary does not smell like anything, when the stars feel very far away. But tonight, it is there, steady, warm, certain, like a lantern that never goes out. The road home rises gently now, a long, slow hill, the kind that does not announce itself. You only notice it when your legs begin to feel it, when your breathing deepens slightly, when the muscles in your back begin their quiet complaint. I climb it, slowly, without rushing, the lantern steady in my hand, the bag lighter than it was, most of the herbs distributed now, the lavender and rosemary and thyme left in cottage after cottage, each bundle placed in a hand, or on a table, or hung from a beam, each one a small thing, just dried plants and rough string. But small things are how large things survive. At the top of the hill, I stop. I always stop here. I look back, the way I came. The dark road winding down. The two villages just visible. Tiny points of warm amber light in the vast dark. Like embers, glowing in the night, refusing to go out. I think of all the people behind those lights. Agnes and her bread, Aldrich and his question, the young wife exhaling, Father Anselm still kneeling, the child closing her eyes, all of them behind their small, warm lights, sleeping now, or almost sleeping, breathing slowly, in and out, the way you are breathing now, in and out. I turn back to the road, the last stretch home. The sky above me beginning to change, almost imperceptible. The deepest black beginning to soften, just slightly, just at the very edges. The stars still sharp, but the darkness between them ever so slightly less. Dawn is still hours away, but it is coming. It is always coming. Even in the longest nights, even in the darkest years, even when you cannot see it yet, it is always already on its way. My cottage comes into view. Small, stone, dark, but inside, the embers of my morning fire still glowing. I banked them carefully before I left. A small habit, a small faith. Leave something burning, so there is warmth to come home to. I push open the door, the smell of my own home. Old wood, cold ash, and underneath it all, the faint ghost of rosemary. From all the bundles Agnes has given me over all these months, pressed into every corner, into the very walls. I set my bag down, set my lantern on the table, pull off my hat, my cloak. I kneel at the hearth, blow gently on the embers. Once, they glow. Twice, they breathe. 3 times, a small flame catches, orange, then gold, then steady amber. I sit back on my heels and watch it. This small fire, in this small room, in this small cottage, on this long, dark road, in this long, dark year. But the fire does not know that. The fire only knows how to burn, steadily, faithfully, one moment at a time. I pull my chair close, sit, let the warmth come to me. My eyes heavy now, my body grateful for the stillness. Outside, the cold continues. The stars continue. The road continues. But here, in this circle of firelight, there is only warmth and silence and the slow deepening of rest. You have walked far tonight, through the dark, through the cold, through all the doors and all the fires. You have carried what needed carrying, and now you can set it down. All of it. Let the fire hold the room. Let the warmth hold you. Breathe in and out. slowly. The embers glow. The night is deep. And you are already almost asleep.